Most people think that they are doing everything right at work. And that's exactly the problem. There are 7 mistakes that I see people make constantly. And they don't just stall careers. They suck you into office drama, pull you into toxic dynamics, or worse, get you pushed down entirely without ever knowing why. As a criminologist who tripped and fell up the career ladder in tech, I have spent years studying how power and dysfunction operate within organizations. And I have helped thousands of people navigate some of the worst workplace situations imaginable. These 7 things, they showed up over and over in every single one. So whether you're in a new job, you want to avoid office politics, or you're sensing something is off where you are, this isn't just a list of things to avoid. It is a playbook for getting the respect, opportunities, and recognition that you deserve. The first mistake is the biggest factor in workplace drama, and it's cost my clients promotions, pay increases, and their peace. You need to stop oversharing at work. Your coworkers are not your friends. Maybe there are exceptions, but in general, here's how it's typically going to play out. Best case, you trust each other, you hang out outside of work, you show up for each other. But then one of you leaves. And unless this is a legit bestie, the staying power just is not there. Now here's what the worst case looks like. And I've seen it play out more times than I could count. And my client Courtney went through this. Courtney was excited when she found a friend group of coworkers at her new job. She was early in her career, she had just moved to a new city, and it felt like kismet. Both her job and her coworkers were amazing. Everyone was so nice. Right away, she was always invited to after-work happy hours, then dinners and nights out at the weekend. She felt like she had it all. I mean, what could be better than working with your closest friends? But there was one person that she didn't get along with so well. Let's call her Avery. And actually, Avery was low-key tormenting her at work. One day, out of pure frustration, Courtney vented to her work friends about it. And not only did they understand, they co-signed. Avery was the worst. They talked about her all the time. Courtney was so relieved. She had people she could trust to vent to who understand exactly what she was going through. Until she realized she didn't. Because one day, Courtney showed up to work and Avery confronted her about all the shit that she was talking. One of Courtney's so-called friends had turned around and gossiped about the drama between Avery and Courtney, and from there, it went straight to Avery's ears. Courtney felt betrayed. She was betrayed, and she didn't even know who had betrayed her because, of course, her work friends all denied it. So she lost trust in everyone around her, and she found herself isolated. She stayed at the company a while longer, but her isolation ultimately alienated her. A few months later, it got so tense that she decided that she needed a fresh start, so she found another job and left. But the betrayal followed her. That's why the first rule is to stop oversharing at work. No one could talk about what they don't know. Now, I know a lot of you struggle with knowing what is oversharing. So if you're not sure if you're sharing too much, there's a very easy filter that you can use to make sure that you're not saying the wrong thing. I have included it in this episode guide that you can download for free using either the link below or by scanning the QR code on screen. Which brings us to mistake number 2. And warning, you might feel called out by this one. My client Carly did everything right. High performer, strong reviews, promoted twice real quick. And then her career completely stalled because she was working too hard. Here's the truth most people find out the hard way. You will reach a stage in your career where working hard only gets you more work. I call this the performance punishment switch. And this is one of the most common toxic dynamics that I see in the workplace. You get things done, so when something's urgent or Chad drops the ball, again, it becomes your problem because your boss knows that they can count on you 110%. But what do you get in return? Maybe they say thanks. But is it showing up on your paycheck? Is it getting you promoted? If you just answered no, you are not alone. Because underneath all that hard work is usually one thing. You are trying to prove yourself. Carly thought she was on track for VP at Big Tech before she turned 30, but then her growth ground to a halt. Work got dumped on her. The praise dried up. What used to be a choice, sacrificing her personal life for her career, became her boss's expectation. If she wasn't available at 8 p.m., it was a problem. She kept waiting for her boss to see her dedication and reward it. But instead, she found herself in career jail. And the more she tried to prove herself, the more grunt work she got. And when her dumbass coworker who was barely able to do his job got promoted and she wasn't even considered for it, that was it. She felt like her job had become toxic AF. She was spinning her wheels and getting absolutely nothing in return. Career jail is really hard to escape. You need to disrupt the dynamic without getting pipped or fired, because the moment that you start saying no or doing less, it is going to be a problem. But the next step in the playbook is going to help you escape career jail. And for Carly, it helped her get back on that fast track for her next promotion. After everything Carly had been through, I asked her one simple question. What are you known for at work? She knew immediately. And so did I, because here's what her boss would never actually say out loud.
Carly really saved my ass when I wasn't managing Chad.
They would never admit that, which meant Carly had no visibility where it mattered and no control over her own narrative. That is a reputation problem, and it is the most expensive career mistake that you can make. Your reputation is the most valuable asset in your career. If you are not actively shaping it, someone else will, and they're not going to do it in your favor. Most people assume that managing your reputation means that you have to be bragging about yourself all the time, but it goes so much deeper than that. And when you do it right, you never have to brag at all. It starts with answering one question. In a room full of important people, what do you want them to say about you? Carly did not want to be known as a person who put out Chad's fires. She wanted to be known for her exceptional strengths, and she wanted the impact of her work to actually be visible. So we got her clear on her natural abilities, her interests, and what she had already started building. We identified her highest impact, highest visibility skills. Then we mapped how she can start cultivating a reputation with intention, both inside of her company and beyond it. This is where most people get stuck, especially if you're in career jail or a toxic job. Getting on the radar of the people above your boss feels impossible. My clients always ask me the same question that you're probably asking yourself right now.
Why would senior leadership be interested in me?
Which brings us directly to the next thing that you should never do at work. Stop making yourself invisible. Here's the thing about this mistake. You make it on purpose. Especially if you've had a toxic work experience, flying under the radar feels like self-protection.
If you are not visible, you can't be a target.
Just keep your head down, do good work, stay out of the drama. That is exactly what my client Hannah did. Hannah learned early in her career what toxic workplaces do. The gossiping, the backstabbing, the bus throwing. She figured out fast that the way to avoid being talked about at work was to not be talked about at all. And for a while, it worked. Good reviews, positive relationships, left out of the gossip entirely. Honestly, Hannah was happy to clock in, do great work, and have her job be the least interesting part of her day. Until Brianna decided Hannah was enemy number one. Now, we'll never know what set Brianna off. Maybe it was Hannah's competence. Maybe a compliment that she got from her boss. But one day, Brianna came for her and she was not subtle about it. First came the rumors. Brianna claimed that Hannah was trash-talking her coworkers and her boss. Then she speculated about her personal life, made up whatever she could to make people dislike Hannah. Then came the blame. Every mistake Brianna made, Hannah's fault. Didn't matter if Hannah had any involvement in it at all. Brianna would scapegoat her anyways. And then, the most consequential, Brianna started stealing credit for Hannah's work, bragging to leadership about her projects, taking credit for results that she had absolutely nothing to do with. And here is how Brianna got away with it. Leadership had no idea what Hannah was doing. They didn't know her work, her impact, or that Brianna was running a diabolical smear campaign, the kind that certain Hollywood celebrities wish they could pull off. Hannah made herself invisible, but invisible people can't defend themselves. So let's talk about what you're going to do instead. The lie that keeps people invisible is this: that senior leaders are somehow superior humans who have no interest in you. And that's just not the truth. Great leaders take leadership personally. And beyond that, your work does roll up directly to their priorities. They have a very vested interest in what you're doing, especially when your work has a high impact on what they care about. When I was a senior manager at a Fortune 500 tech company, I wasn't producing the product. I was focused on strategy and cross-functional outcomes. The people doing the high impact work, I absolutely wanted to know them. And the simplest way to get on the radar is this: ask for their input. When someone gives you advice, it creates a reason to follow up with them. And it makes them personally invested in your success. That is not manipulation. That is psychology. I share a few more of my favorite tactics in that free episode guide that I mentioned earlier. But the important thing to know here is this: small moves make big results. And building visibility, it also protects you from the next mistake, one that a lot of people don't see coming until it's way too late. Hannah thought that she could avoid office politics by avoiding office politics. She learned the hard way that this is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make at work. Most people believe stay clean, stay out of it, stay safe. But office politics don't care about fairness. Brianna proved that. She was spreading rumors, stealing credit, and schmoozing leadership. All things that we refuse to do because they're toxic and gross. But it was working for Brianna. The mistake that Hannah made and that most people make it work is assuming that the only way to play the game is to play it the way that Brianna was, that office politics are inherently toxic, so the only safe move is to opt out entirely. But that's not true, and that mindset is exactly what makes you vulnerable at work. I talk about this through what I call the 3 power personas, the 3 ways people show up in workplace politics. The player is Brianna. Toxic, manipulative, plays dirty. You know who they are. The avoider is where most people land. You stay out of it until someone like Brianna drags you into it unwillingly. Then you panic call me begging for help. And then there's the powerhouse. That's who I want you to be. The powerhouse understands that office politics are just power dynamics, and they know how to own their power without compromising their integrity. No toxic tactics required. Hannah was a textbook avoider. It kept her out of the drama until Brianna made her a target, and by the time Hannah realized what was happening, she was already at a massive disadvantage. The way I explained it to her was this. By avoiding office politics entirely, she put herself 50 feet behind the start line, while Brianna was quietly inching forward until she was 3/4 of the way to the finish line, and she controlled the starting gun. And one of the ways that Brianna got away with it brings us directly to the next thing that you need to stop doing at work. This one is going to be controversial. You need to stop tolerating toxicity. This is how Brianna got the upper hand on Hannah. When she attacked Hannah's competence, she created doubt. When she sabotaged Hannah's work and blamed it on Hannah's incompetence, she compounded the damage to her reputation. When she pushed Hannah's buttons until Hannah snapped back, she made Hannah look unhinged. Tolerating toxicity is like ignoring a water leak because it's just a drip, until one day those drips have nowhere to go. They pool, and eventually the weight becomes so much, the ceiling comes crashing down. Now, it's easy to say,
I would never tolerate toxic behavior.
Sanctimonious people who have never dealt with toxicity at work love saying that. Here's the thing though, Hannah didn't even clock how bad it had gotten. That's by design. Most toxic work environments are built by death by 1,000 paper cuts. Brianna did not start at level 10 toxic. She started with a look, a comment, a small slight that Hannah brushed off, with a dose of gaslighting to keep her from trusting what she was seeing.
There's no problem, it's just you.
And the cruel design of toxic workplaces is that they make you question your own experience. You see the toxic behavior clearly, and then cognitive dissonance pulls you right back into hoping it's going to change. What makes it worse is the cycle. Your toxic boss loses it on you, criticizes you in front of everyone, and then they realize that they did something wrong. Maybe they apologize. Maybe they're kind for a bit. They recognize your work. They give you a bit of hope. As a criminologist, I would call this compensatory behavior. It's the same that we see in abusive relationships. The cycle is not accidental. It's what keeps you trapped in it. But there is always going to be another outburst, and each one is going to get worse and worse. Now, I'm not saying that the moment that you spot one toxic behavior, you should run for the hills and quit your job. Even good workplaces have hard moments. But I want you to be a powerhouse in those moments, someone who speaks up with confidence and positions themselves so that they are a nightmare target. That's the shift that Hannah made with me. First, she needed shutdown scripts. Toxic people are extremely predictable, and Brianna was no exception. She made passive-aggressive snipes, backhanded comments, and undermined Hannah's work. Hannah and I mapped out a response for each one of these behaviors. Like when Brianna chose to be passive-aggressive, Hannah would respond in a way that would force Brianna to either walk it back or expose her toxicity, which she absolutely didn't want to do. Now here's the part that matters way more than people expect. Hannah practiced. She didn't just read scripts. She rehearsed them until they became reflexes. Okay, it's going to feel kind of silly to do it, but it is going to have an enormous payoff because in the moment of conflict, you will not rise to the occasion. You will fall to the level of preparation. Second, because Hannah's job was genuinely on the line, she needed to activate her allies. Hannah was an avoider, but she was also a natural people person who had accidentally built relationships with 3 very influential people across different parts of the organization. We evaluated each one and we identified 2 that she could turn to. But she didn't ask them for help. She asked them for advice. They gave it to her. They also reassured her. And then, without being asked, they quietly advocated for Hannah behind the scenes. Now, it didn't solve everything, but it stabilized the situation enough that Hannah was no longer on the brink of losing her job. And it gave her a real choice. Option 1, Stay, become immune to Brianna's attacks, and rebuild from the inside. It was possible, but salvaging a reputation is 10 times harder than building one. Option 2, activate or search. Start somewhere new with the right principles in place from day one. Now, both were totally valid, but both depended on one thing, which is the 7th thing that you need to stop doing at work. And this one is also the most life-changing. You need to stop giving a about work. We're in this weird cultural moment where your life is supposed to revolve around work. Your job encompasses your identity, your social circle, and your self-worth. Oh, and your financial stability, of course. So of course you care. You care about how you're perceived, about being liked, about your work being valued. But when you care that much, you don't just absorb the good stuff. You absorb all of it. The spats with coworkers, the lazy people getting promoted, the toxic people getting protected. And that emotional weight, it's gonna hold you back more than any of the mistakes we just talked about. I've watched it happen with every client I've worked with, including Hannah and Carly. Now, Hannah ended up choosing option 2. A fresh start just felt like the right move for her. She activated her search, implemented my strategies, and walked in on day 1 as a powerhouse. She built her new reputation with intention, and she walked in knowing exactly how she was going to deal with whoever the Brianna was at her new job. Carly let go of her fear of being seen. She made herself visible, she built her reputation, and she got the promotion that she deserved. The thing that made the difference for both of them was not just the tactics. It was detachment, the ability to care about doing good work without tying their entire sense of self-worth to what happens next. And that is the biggest power move that you can make at work. And you'll also have a lot less stress in your life. The thing is, most people have no idea how to actually do this. So I want you to go watch this video next where I show you how to detach at work. I will see you there, bestie.